Revelación.
So, yeah, The Last of Us Part 2's reception has been...
Now, much of the things that made this previous game so
mixed. Yep, people are angry. Just about everyone's angry. Everyone's angry for a lot of reasons. And at the risk of sounding like some sort of centrist that just wants to grill for God's sake, can we relax? Like, really? This game's great, but that doesn't mean it's above criticism. It's... Look, there's a problem I don't see people talking about. But I can't just dive right in because first I need to weed out the crazies. Those that think this game is either an untouchable masterpiece, and those that have deceived themselves into thinking it's the worst thing to happen to video games since Custer's Revenge. But I think a single tweet can sum up the utter absurdity of this whole thing. In a medium where everything is John Wick, The Last of Us Part 2 is Schindler's List. How do you even think of that, much less follow that insane thought up with, yeah, I'm a genius, this is in good taste, I should tweet this. No, this is not a masterpiece. Fucking Schindler's List, Jesus. But it sure as shit isn't the trash some are making it out to be. I've seriously heard people compare this game to Season 8 of Game of Thrones, and quick question. How dare you? You have no right. You know not the suffering I've felt. No, this game, if anything, has a vision. Clear themes, even though they're for 8th grade book reports, go fuck yourself. So this, at the very least, is better than that, purely by the virtue that it has something to say. There are at least real emotional moments. I cared about the deaths of every main character in this game, some only in retrospect. But the only death that Season 8 of Game of Thrones made me care about was the death of good writing.
I know a killer when I see one.
Bitch, are you for real?
Why do we keep doing this? Why do we have to keep acting like every new movie, TV show, or game is either Citizen Kane or Leonard Part 6? Remember The Mandalorian? Remember how it was the best story ever told? Oh, wait, what? You're telling me it wasn't? You're telling me you already forgot what happened in like half the fucking episodes? It was actually just a good story with likable characters, but wasn't the second coming of Jesus Christ? And this last thing, God damn it. I have to address it. Am I homophobic? Yeah, obviously, I'm scared shitless of gay people. Always walking around with their nice asses, tempting me, looking at me with their big, beautiful blue eyes, trying to get me to buy Skyrim. Fuck them! That's why I make YouTube videos. I feel so at home on a platform that demonetizes and silences LGBT voices. YouTube. Because gay people don't deserve a voice. Yeah, obviously I'm being facetious. The fact that some chicks eat pussy and some dudes swallow dong is not a fact that causes me to lose sleep at night because I'm not a fucking idiot. If you don't believe me, then leave your dislike and shitty comment and leave. This video is for those that are actually open to hearing the opinion of others. Why are you here? This video has nothing to offer those that refuse to accept that someone they disagree with can still be a good person. I mean, if you just instantly try to invalidate the opinion of someone just because they disagreed with you, then did you really pay attention to The Last of Us 2's story? Maybe you didn't really internalize the themes of perspective and dehumanization that are central to the narrative. Fucking shots fired. Tea spilled. Dislikes off the chart. Okay, so now that all of that is out of the way, this is a great story. A great game. But a bad video game story. This is where the problem lies. The game put a lot of characters and themes on a table and said, what do you think? And I respect that. I fucking love that. Finally, that M on the box meant something other than there's blood and tits in this game. A mature story that showed me characters at their worst and best and let me decide Why aren't you looking at me, Naughty Dog? Naughty Dog, look at me. You're going to let me choose, right? Like whether or not to actually kill Abby, or whether to chase her to Santa Barbara in the first place, or fucking something, anything? You're going to let me explore these themes on my own, right? You're just a bigot that hates lesbians. So it's that time again. It's time for another YouTube nobody to scream about ludonarrative dissonance into the dark void of malice and furry porn that is the internet. Alright, I've talked about this before, the idea of gameplay and story both needing to support the overall narrative of a game in order for the narrative to actually work. Like, if you mix the story of Max Payne 3 in with the gameplay of Kirby's Epic Yarn, the overall narrative would suffer.
As he rubbed his cake-filled belly. But then, Kirby appeared with a huge...
These guys weren't messing around. This place was like Baghdad with G-strings.
I know that's an extreme example, but you get it. The gameplay of Max Payne 3 is dark and violent, as is the story, whereas the gameplay of Kirby's Epic Yarn is, the story is, I haven't played it, man. I don't fucking know. I'm guessing the story and gameplay have a consistent tone between them. Characterization, setting, tone, and themes. There should at least be an attempt by the developer to have these match in order for the overall narrative to be the best it can be. So, this is the part where I say that The Last of Us 2's gameplay tells a different story than the cutscenes and dialogue. The gameplay in some way betrays the overall narrative? Well, yeah, in one way, which I'll talk about later, but broadly speaking, no. The Last of Us 2 actually contains an interesting little approach to exploring the theme of dehumanization that's central to the overall narrative through the gameplay. First, I want to talk about the obvious. This game really showed me that forcing you to play as the villain can really force some empathy from the player. I mean, listen, this is a gross word to use, but it's really apt, so I have to. It's really intimate, isn't it? You are them, their actions are your own, their perspective is your own. That's why a lot of people are pissed. This game having you play as Abby after seeing what she did to Joel was too much for them. You were too close. Every person or good boy that you killed as Ellie is recontextualized through Abby's eyes. So if the villains in the story are human, how do you translate that to the combat? How do you make gunning down hordes of faceless fucks actually register with you emotionally? If you want to make the player feel that their killing actually matters, they have to be able to see the humanity in their enemies. The Last of Us 2's enemies are different. They don't run up to you mindlessly while you replace their vital organs with hot lead. They cry out the names of their friends as you gun them down.
God damn it! Down!
They fucking scream in pain as the life drains from their bodies. And of course, every now and then, the game forces you to stop, and the enemies say this.
Hey, come closer. Fucking look me in the eye.
The problem with this is that you still kill like 1,000 fucking dudes in this game, while you still let Abby live at the end. This is a pretty glaring flaw, but one I'm definitely willing to forgive considering the interesting setup of the story. They could have just had you not kill 1,000 dudes, but this is a AAA game, so you have to. It's the fucking law for some reason.
Stop!
You know that quote, "A single death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic"? Stalin didn't say that, by the way, no one knows where it originates from. Anyway, the gameplay attempts the impossible. It tries to turn 1,000,000 deaths into 1,000,000 tragedies. Does it work? Yeah, well, no, I can't decide. It's a solid effort, and the few times the enemies showed pain and spoke to me, fucking spooked me. I've seen people say that this game doesn't work if you don't empathize with Abby. But you know what? I did. I really did. But that doesn't magically make this a masterpiece. Although it does mean this game has a pair of massive brass balls. Holy shit, Naughty Dog. If anything, you have my unending respect. Truth be told, I appreciate a nice big pair of balls. She wasn't a monster, she was a person, twisted by hatred into committing monstrous acts. You can disagree, I completely understand why you would, trust me. What's important is that the game sets up Ellie and Abby. It shows you them, unflinchingly, at their worst and best, and asks you to think about who they are. I understood their actions even if I didn't condone them. The story gave me a lot to think about, and I loved it for that. Now listen, God damn it. This is gonna be the hottest of takes. Possibly a bad one, but I wouldn't have made this video if I did not believe that this small change would have 100% made this game better. There's gonna be a knee-jerk reaction to this, but I couldn't help myself. I saw a big toxic pool of sludge growing on the internet and thought, yeah, I'ma stick my dick in that. Let's see what happens. When I say what this idea is, you're probably gonna be pissed, but I implore you.
I implores you to go back and tell them to send someone just a little bit more impressive next time.
I often feel split about a game offering the player choice in a game's story, but if there's ever been a place for them, it's here. It's right here. There are a lot of reasons for that I'll get into later, but first I want to assure you that I don't want this because it would make those that wanted to kill Abby feel better, but because it would have made them feel worse. And so that those like me that wanted to let her go can get the emotional impact that choice in a game's narrative provides. This would be a test, a trial, for both you and this game's narrative. Did it work? Did you see her humanity? Was it enough? But if her story didn't redeem her, if she simply can't be, then can you go through with it?
I'm not gonna fight you.
The best argument against my proposal that I can think of is that this just isn't the story that Naughty Dog intended, to which I say, the idea of a bad ending and a good ending is another one that I often feel conflicted about. There is the fact that a bad ending often feels more like the game is just wagging its finger at you and telling you you're a naughty boy, but I think the concept works if the themes and writing are strong enough and built around preparing both yourself and the characters for it. It didn't work in Dishonored because the enemies were just typical faceless bastards and the main assassination target spent all their free time throwing babies into wood chippers. It didn't work in Red Dead 2 because the game made being bad fun and therefore punished you for enjoying yourself. And it didn't work as well as it could have in Far Cry 3, despite how much I love it, because the story didn't really do a good job of convincing you that Jason could actually be saved. The Last of Us 2 doesn't have any of these problems. Abby isn't a cartoon villain. The gameplay doesn't have the freedom of Red Dead Redemption 2, so you're gonna be a bastard no matter what. And both Ellie and Abby aren't too far gone to be redeemed. These ending choices usually have a generally tacked-on feel to them, with the exception of Far Cry 3. They're there for replayability. The Last of Us 2 is literally built all around this confrontation between Abby and Ellie. And both of these characters also have ample motivation to fight or not fight. The situation has been set up perfectly to allow the player to choose. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the characters. Games are always about you. You drive the plot forward, even if that's just by beating the challenges put in front of you. A movie is the same for every person watching it, but no matter how linear a game is, your experience is unique. Video games are the one medium where you're not passive. Your choices are supposed to matter, because with choice comes the potential to make the wrong one. Lisa is a game I've been slowly making my way through because, well, calling it the painful RPG is a fucking understatement. But there's one part of the game that I can't stop thinking about. This game is hard, and there's an item there. Probably a useful one, and there's a big monster between me and the item. Therefore, game logic dictates, there's some serious shit in that little bag, and I should kill the monster to get it. Alright, cool, I'll just kill him and get the item, but as you fight him, something starts to happen. He's crying. When he started doing that, I started to feel uncomfortable. When was the last time you hurt something in a game and thought, am I doing the right thing? Probably not recently, because demons don't cry. Monsters don't beg for their lives. To be scared, to feel pain, to suffer is human. When I had to kill a monster to get an item, I was like, sweet, let's do it. The cost of the item was one dead monster, and that was a price I was absolutely willing to pay. But by showing me that it was capable of feeling pain, the game raised the price, and forced me to consider whether or not it was one worth paying. That enemy in Lisa that wept, that showed fear and pain, I kept hitting it because I wanted that item. This game is bullshit, and I thought there was probably a BFG of some variety in that bag that would have made the game easier, so I kept going. Lisa, within the span of just a minute, put me in a purely gameplay-based situation that had me ask myself, am I really a good person? Or am I just good in real life because it's easy to be good? These are some uncomfortable fucking questions that only a game could ask. So why does this work? Why does this trigger deep reflections on myself and of who I am as a person, while this is just a miserable slog that teaches me nothing more than killing is bad? I mean, this fight in Lisa could be summarized as killing is bad, but feels so much more emotionally complex than that. What's the difference? There's a run button. I could have left. I didn't, and that's what hurt. I decided to keep going. The fact that I could have stopped but didn't is what gave this fight meaning. If I was forced into it, then afterwards the game was like, wow, you sure are a piece of shit, huh? Then it would have lost all its power. The Last of Us 2 puts so much faith in the player in the first and second act, letting you draw your own conclusions. What the game wants you to think is clear, but there's enough wiggle room to give the player the ability to disagree. I mean, she fucking beat Joel to death with a golf club. The problem is the third act, where the game stops acting like there's any amount of gray area here. What if instead of telling you what to think, the game let you think? That fight on the beach, that was emotionally charged and really well done. I liked both of these characters a lot, but not everyone did. And this game should have let you explore that. You want vengeance? Fucking have some. Here it is. No matter what you thought of this game, at the end, you knew Abby. You knew her fears, you knew her quirks, you knew her hopes. You saw her at her worst and you saw her at her best. But no matter what, every time you looked at her, all you saw was this. You didn't care that she had friends. You didn't give a shit that she was a person. That act was irredeemable, unfathomable. So drown her. Drown that shadow of a woman that has nothing left. Taste that victory on your tongue and decide how it tastes for yourself. But what if you forgave Abby, or at least couldn't bring yourself to do it? Your decision defines Ellie's character and connects her to you in a way that only games can. So let her go. Let her leave because you know that you can't get back what she took from you. And because the game let you choose, you didn't just watch Ellie forgive Abby. You forgave her together. Many see this ending as bold. This shitty little half step where Ellie's only redeeming quality is that she didn't completely drown an emaciated woman who looks like she just crawled out of fucking Auschwitz. I imagine that if you did, you already stopped watching this video, but I see it as cowardly. If this game was bold, it would have trusted its own writing. It would have believed that you understood Abby enough to not want this. Like I said earlier, it lays out all the characters and themes on a table and asks you, what do you think? But it doesn't let you answer. Well, I think the story's convinced you that revenge is bad and that you're bad for wanting it. Naughty Dog got so close. I'm not saying there's no redeeming qualities to this game's story, because there absolutely are. The fact that I and so many others wanted to forgive Abby after watching what she did to Joel is a testament to this game's writing. This game's story reached for the stars and landed right around here. There are a lot of reasons for this, but this is the sticking point for me. The Last of Us 2 is supposed to be adapted into a TV series soon, and maybe it'll be great. Neil Druckmann is supposed to be writing it, and I hope he does well. Not because I think he's a genius, but just because Uncharted and The Last of Us don't really use the unique power of games in the ways that they should. This game seemed to have made a great step in that direction, but stumbled at the finish line. He seems uncomfortable with loosening his grip on a story and letting it be interpreted by the audience in any way. So I think he'd be better suited to a non-interactive medium where you tell someone a story as opposed to letting the player participate in it. This game had you play as a hero, but had the enemies feel human enough that you began to question that. It then had you play as the villain until she no longer felt like one. But when it came time to let you choose, it didn't loosen its grip on the story. You make the story in games, that's why they're powerful. I was so happy that a game let me think, but at the end, it just told me what to think.